Football is here. Let's go over how this 2020 NFL season will be much different than in years past. If you enjoy this video, please remember to like the video and subscribe for more content on data and analytics behind sports. In July, the owners and the NFL Players Association reached an agreement to continue the season under these unprecedented times. This agreement outlined how the NFL will handle reduced revenues, how players can opt out of the season, and how the NFL will handle the unique situations created by this pandemic. So, how will the expected drop in revenue affect the NFL? With limited fans and no preseason, the NFL is anticipating a drop of as much as $4 billion in revenue, a nearly 30% decline. The NFL salary cap is directly tied to league revenue, so when the revenue drops, so does the salary cap. This would put nearly every team over the cap for next season, leading to a nightmare situation for general managers, who would be forced to cut franchise-caliber players to create cap space. The NFL, owners, and players agreed this wasn't a realistic option. To combat this problem, the NFL has decided to take this loss over several seasons to ease the pressure on the cap. So instead of seeing a dramatic drop this season, the league agreed to set the 2021 cap at a minimum of $175 million, about a 12% decline. The remaining loss will be spread over the following 3 seasons. In another effort to save the league money, the NFL will not pay a large number of benefits and programs this season. These cuts may seem insignificant, but they are a big deal to the owners. They will save each team around $17 million. With many players worried about the health risks, the league created a structure for players to opt out of this season. Players may opt out under 2 different circumstances. First, if the player has a high-risk medical condition, they can opt out and receive an accrued season, which is especially important for younger players still on rookie deals. They'll receive a $350,000 stipend for the season, and their contract will be paused for a year. This doesn't count as a salary advance, meaning if they have $10 million left on their contract, they will receive $10 million and this additional $350,000 stipend. The second way a player can opt out is a voluntary opt-out, which anyone can qualify for. They will receive a $150,000 stipend, they will not earn an accrued season, and their contract will be paused for a year. This stipend does come as an advance on their salary, meaning if they have $10 million left on their contract, the $150K will come from that and they will receive $9.85 million in future years. This is a big decision for players, not only because they're missing out on a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, but they're losing an entire season of playing eligibility, potentially costing them millions of dollars in the long run. The deadline for both of these opt-outs was August 6th. 67 players opted out before that time from 29 of the 32 teams, with only the Steelers, Falcons, and Chargers with no opt-outs as of the deadline. There are 2 conditions where a player can still opt out even though the deadline has passed. 1, if a new diagnosis reveals that the player has a high-risk medical condition, or 2, if a family member dies, is hospitalized, or is moved to a medical facility because of COVID. In addition to opt-outs, there are some other rules put in place to try to allow teams to deal with the potential risks of this season. One of the most notable is the many changes made to the injury reserve list. The return procedures have been modified so that players will be eligible to return to activity after 3 regular season games or postseason weeks following their placement on injured reserve. This is a big change from the norm. Teams usually are able to bring back just 2 players from injury reserve, and that's after 8 weeks of being on the list. Players on the injury reserve list count towards the salary cap, but don't count towards the 53 available roster spots. Players who test positive for COVID-19 won't be required to miss at least 3 weeks. Instead of being placed on the injury reserve list, they will be placed on the commissioner's exempt list. We typically see this list used for players facing off-field allegations, pretty much seen as the NFL's naughty list. This season, however, the NFL will be taking advantage of this list for players with COVID-19. They will be placed on the list and there will be no minimum or maximum stay on the commissioner's exempt list, meaning they can return back to play as soon as they are medically cleared. NFL teams are doing their best to prepare for this upcoming season. And with the constantly changing circumstances in each state, each team is taking to a different route to handle fans in stadiums. Keep in mind, these numbers are going to change as the season progresses, but as of the end of August, this is the list of every team's anticipated fan capacity going into the season. This season won't look like any other, and there will certainly be some hoops to jump through, but we are very, very, very happy football is back.